Well, hello. There's Steve with his drone video, guys. Y'all look out. He, he's doing his best Superman impression today. Whew. So what's up, everybody? How are y'all? Another Sunday is upon us. Episode, what number was this?
149.
Yep. 149 consecutive Sundays. Wow, that's pretty. Would you have thought we were going to make it to 149 that first night? I never would have.
I wasn't sure we were going to get to 2 the first night.
Yeah. All right. So is it too early to start teasing with what's coming up around Christmas? I mean, everybody does know that we try to do a big Christmas live edition every year, and we try to give away some stuff. I mean, y'all are familiar with that. And we do partner with a lot of our different companies. So if you're one of those companies that we've sent you an email and asked if you wanted to partner and you haven't responded, then you might want to get to responding, because we're getting our list together. We're getting our partners for the Christmas edition situated, and we're going to start doing some advertising in, what did we decide on, like November, first week of November, probably.
Well, we're going to be, it's only about 2 months out, probably in the next week or two. So yeah, we're going to get going on that.
Yeah. But, I figure we'd give it to the end of October to work out, the wrinkles.
Yeah.
So the first live in November, I figured when we'll actually start talking about what we're going to be doing and getting a little more specific with it. We do have several companies that want to partner with us. That it's going to be some pretty cool stuff going on. We're trying to spread it out amongst, CNCs, lasers, maybe even some software, materials, that kind of thing. So
hopefully a nice mix, a little something for everyone, hopefully.
Yes, sir. So what you been up to over there? I've heard that it's cooling off up there. I see you broke out the flannel. So I'm assuming that means it is not 80-something degrees where you are like it is here.
Well, yeah, I mean, it actually warmed up throughout the day today. So it didn't quite hit 80, but it did get into the mid 70s, which kind of surprised me a little bit. But it has been kind of cool here, which has been nice. Open up the windows, open up the shop. But we could be a couple weeks out from snow. So I'm going to enjoy it while I can.
Cool.
But yeah, been a little busy in the shop. Let's see. Put out the video on the Fox Alien upgrade with the VFD and the 1500 watt spindle. And so that runs pretty nice. I decided to do more of like here's the step-by-step of actually doing it, to help anybody actually looking into it. Like, what does it entail? Cause it cuts even better than the machine did before. You want to see what the machine can do, you can do that. So,
yeah.
But yeah, put that out there. And then Friday also dropped it was kind of a combination of questions I've been getting around engravings and such. And so a little bit of, why is everything wobbly? Some key points to hit on the mechanical setup, to the delay on the scan delay on Lightburn especially will allow you to do a scanning offset, which will adjust when it causes the beam to fire. And this is something that's a little more, it can happen on any laser, but it's a little more likely on a CO2, just from the controller getting the tube to fire. And there's just sometimes millisecond delays, and you start getting that kind of, you seeing like fuzzy letters, or almost like the edges are getting like a shadow kind of thing on them, and they're not crisp. And so I kind of walk through that setup, as well as some tips on just making the engravings pop a little bit. So got that out Friday as well. And then, as I showed earlier, I took a little bit of a break yesterday. It was pretty nice weather, and actually it was very advantageous I did this. A buddy of mine said, hey, you're going to go out flying. I'm like, you know what? I do have to finish up that airplane. So went out to the flying field for a few hours yesterday. Had some fun there. And then my son messages me. He's like, hey, the power's out at home. Which, there was a transformer in town, took out I don't know. There's like 3,000 people without power for.
Mm.
It was about 3.5, 4 hours. So if I would have stayed home trying to get projects done, I would have been really annoyed.
Yeah, you'd have probably been a little upset anyway. So
Yeah.
so maybe out there flying was the best place you could have been.
It did end up being more useful and kind of enjoyable to get out and enjoy the sun a little bit and hang out with a couple of guys I haven't really seen most of the year. So
Yeah, well, my weekend has been outside the shop. Of course, football season's upon us, and my daughter is in the band. So Friday night we were collecting money for the parking for the band. We do that as kind of I guess you would say, to help raise funds to buy instruments and pay for stuff for the band or whatever. Because they're schools don't typically fund those type of things 100%. Like they'll give you some money, but there's a lot of shortcomings when it comes to instruments and upkeep on instruments and all that. So me and my wife typically every home game, because you ever heard the expression that 10% of the people do 90% of the work?
Oh yeah.
So like every home game, me and my wife end up having to take up money for parking because we have all these other parents, and some of the kids live with their grandparents or whatnot. And so I'm going to give those people a pass. You know what I mean? Because if you're a certain age, maybe you don't need to be out there, but not all of those parents are in that situation. But we wind up doing it about every weekend. And then of course the trailer that they use their equipment in when we go out of town has to be pulled. And you got to have a certain size vehicle and certain capabilities to be able to do that. And so not every parent can. So this guy winds up pulling it. So Friday night we spent at the football game, collecting money, watching the football game, watching my daughter in the band. And then they had a competition yesterday that was about an hour and a half away from where we live. And so we had to, pull the trailer and go there. It was at a college campus, and they did really good. They weren't going to compete because they've got a lot of new kids in the band, and the band instructor was kind of like, might not be the best time to be trying to compete and get scored, because you don't want to go in there and just devastate the kids and be like, y'all aren't any good. So she's like, I didn't really sign them up, but there was somehow or another, there was some mix up in the paperwork, and they wound up scoring them anyway. But the kids did really, really good, like surprisingly good compared to what they'd been doing in practice. So that was all day yesterday, pretty much. We were out of town doing that. So today's the first day I've been in the shop since Friday at about 3. And I've been working on some stuff for my friend May for that event she's got coming up, as well as some of y'all know we got a meet and greet. But these are some May event coin holders that I created and make for May that she has, basically like the little ice cream tokens. They're the little wooden tokens that I engrave. I make them on a CO2 laser, and each event has a different token. So you collect them, and these are the things that you put like on your shelf to collect the said tokens. And so I have to make those as well as the tokens and the name tags and all that. And I can't show you the tokens or the name tags because May tries to keep that secret until the event. And I've let that cat out of the bag a couple of years in a row. So I'm going to try to leave that cat in the bag this year. And then I've had some other jobs. I had somebody sent me some acrylics, which I don't normally do, but I got talked into it since I was retired. One of you guys, or one of the viewers, was having some problems cutting some acrylic, and you know how it goes. Advertisement sometimes doesn't tell you that you can engrave clear acrylic, but you can't cut it. So there was some mix up in what the capabilities of the machine was. They purchased the machine and then needed clear acrylic cut and couldn't. So I'm assisting on that. Matter of fact, I've got I don't really do this stuff a lot, but I figured out a really cool way, because like these are all cut. So what I did is I cut them, and then I took some painter's tape, because I didn't want to leave tabs or tags or anything. So I took some painter's tape and literally just before I raised it up off the work bed, I painter's taped them to the scrap, so that it makes them a little easier to transport without getting all scun up and scratched up. So So yeah, there's like 2 sheets of these, but you can look through there. They're cut loose. It's just literally painter's tape holding them in place. That way I can ship them back the way they came.
That's cool.
I don't normally do that, but like I said, it wasn't that big of an ask. And of course, I worked on this week. I did this twice. Did this project twice. Once I started on it with another machine, which I like the machine, but it has one little flaw that needs to be addressed, and it keeps rearing its head. And that's the Atom Stack C4 is what I started this job with. But we've talked about there's some slippage that goes on that machine, and they hopefully are going to address it, but mine's still slipping, and so I wound up using the Fox Alien to redo the project because I had started it on the Atom Stack in the video, and so I had to go back and redo the video completely. And so I wound up with 2 of these. Brandy took one of them. It's in the house. I'm gonna keep this one. I don't know. My friend May sees it. She may want it because it's kind of pumpkin themed. She has an event coming up. She may, if nothing else, I'll use it for decoration at the meet and greet. So, but yeah. So I worked on that. Y'all saw the video, but that took like 3 days because I had to record that video twice, which was not fun.
Well, that's not
that's about oh, wait a minute. There's Mr. Allman right there. Yeah. So yeah, there's that's this week's project. I thought that was pretty cool as far as the paint. I wanted to go for that like distressed Hobby Lobby look on the paint, and I think I pulled it off pretty good. It kind of looks antique and old. So there you go.
Well, along the pumpkin theme, I was working with the C4 today, and
look at that
little
cat head thing.
Yeah. This is some 1/4-inch Baltic birch that I was just messing around with, trying to play with that a little bit. I definitely had to slow it down compared to other machines. Using the Mini Jenny compression bit from Cody, it was working fine, but it was just getting kind of chattery at higher speeds. So yeah, that machine definitely whatever they're putting on the lead screws for lubrication is way too sticky, and that's half the problem.
Yeah, it's half of it, but it's not the whole thing because I have done everything I know to do short of breaking out my wire welder and welding that lead screw to the stepper to keep it from slipping right there. I have took and tried to like scar up the shaft on that stepper. I've scarred up the shaft on the lead screw to try to enhance the friction. I've even thought about taking like some Loctite and putting in there before I put everything together to see if that little bit of added, would help. But I can take my thumb and just put my thumb in the way and move the axis one way or the other, and it starts slipping. And I've tightened it to the point to where if I try to tighten it anymore, I'm going to strip out those grub screws.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, the machine, I like it, but you just can't run the speeds and feeds up. Like you start trying to do too much of a pass, even with 18-inch bits, it's slipping right now.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have to, like, how some of the machines, they'll put a flat side on the shaft. And maybe I need to just break down, get my little Dremel out and put some flat sides on mine. But a coupler with a flat side, I don't know if that's going to work.
It would help, but I don't know. I'm jury's still out for me on that machine.
Yeah. It hasn't rose to the level of my other favorites yet, but it has potential. It just needs some work.
I don't think it's going to do as well as the Reno or the Masuda. The way it's designed, it's not. It is going to be a light duty CNC machine. It's a very well built light duty one, but it's not going to raise to their level. So,
yeah.
But I do have one more thing, and this is a little bit of a show and tell and a little bit of an ask. And so I did have something show up this week, and it's a little heavy. Here's one end of it. And here is the other end of it.
I kind of cheated. I know what that is.
So this is the Sculpin sent out this is their 20-watt IR fiber module, and it'll work on quite a few of their lasers. They actually have mounts and cables for like their old S10 series and the S30, S30 Ultra, as well as the FS-A9. And so it's a gantry-based fiber laser module, and it's a 20-watt power, which is interesting. And so I am going to be hooking that up to the A9 and doing some tests with it. But I'm curious what people would be looking for in a gantry-based fiber laser, what they think they'd want to use it for, to help me figure out, okay, what should I test with this? So if people have ideas on that or curiosities, drop a comment in here or send me a note on it. And I'd love to get some feedback on that before I run through testing it and doing some, test projects with it. So something to come soon, but also wanted to get a little early feedback on what people would be looking to use it for. So
yeah, it's that's going to be a very specialized piece of equipment, I think. But it is definitely interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, when you get into those ranges, I'm used to them being in the galvos and not the gantry. And I mean, I personally, for the types of things I do, I'm not looking for the bigger size. I'm looking, the galvos are nice, they're contained, they're fast. And so this will be interesting to see what I find for use cases with it. So people have ideas, shoot them my way. So
yeah, have your idea in a video. Because I'll be thinking about that too, because that is kind of unique.
Yeah. Anyway, before we get too far behind on questions, just start rolling through some of them. DJS is asking, Steve, which would you recommend, the Reno 65 Pro or the Polar Light or the Onyx? Don't really care about the bed size. So the two that I have more direct experience with is going to be the Polar Light and then the Reno Pro series. And not necessarily the Vision. They are allegedly coming out with a Reno 65 Vision, but it's not out yet. So if you're into cameras, the Polar Light is going to have one. The Reno 65 is going to be like an add-on thing that you can try to make work. Outside of that, the big differences that I would say is the Reno 65, you got a little more power out of the tube, and you do have bigger working area, even though you're not concerned about that. The Polar has decent air extraction built in. I was pretty surprised about that kind of bar across the bottom with the small fans. It does seem to work well, but it is a little bit smaller in diameter overall, but they try to make up for that in air velocity. So it does work, and it is spread across the base, and that's one thing I think that helps it, is that it's not coming from one central point, but spread out across there. I think it's a little more refined. It's a little bit cleaner looking unit, a little bit nicer looking unit. But with the Reno series, they have you have to have an external chilling supply. So you either have a bucket of water with a pump circulating water through it, or preferably one of their chillers, or at least the radiator chiller of the 3000, or preferably the 5200 series. It has to be external. Now that's also a benefit, because the Polar Light and even the Polar Plus, they have an internal reservoir and pump system, and that is more of a radiator system, and it's only going to get as cool as the ambient air, and it's less volume of water, and so that water is going to heat up faster. It's also inside the cabinet, and so it's not getting like all the machine air and all the machine temps are also heating it up. So if you're going to be running it a lot, running it hard, like trying to put this into production, having an external chiller option is going to be beneficial to you. Now, when it comes to the air assist, the Polar Light one is that both of them come with an internal kind of air assist. The Polar Light one is actually addressable, where it'll turn it on or off. The Reno series, you turn the machine on and the air pump just starts. And I will say the air pump on the Reno series, at least the 45, and I believe I've seen that the 65 is the same thing, is very anemic. It is very lightweight. I would basically say you're going to have to upgrade that. And I did a video on how to do that as well. So that in and of itself would be a big, it's not hard to do, but it's something you have to do. And it's kind of annoying.
Yeah,
But
if you're not one that likes tinkering with the machines too, that may be a deal breaker for you.
Right. That could be
You're
a
not
deal
going to
breaker
be
there.
you're not going to be as happy with the performance of it if it doesn't have adequate air assist.
Yep. So otherwise, I would say they're fairly comparable. But I have been using the Polar Light a little bit more. It's out here in the shop. I do have the Reno 45 down in my basement shop as well. Probably see more of that over winter time unless something was to replace it. But yeah, I would say I would probably lean a little bit towards the Polar Light, mostly because I have a little more confidence in after sales support in OhmTech than Monport.
Yeah, I have the Polar Plus, and that's what is over here. Like, that's my CO2. The only CO2 that I have to where I could power it up right now and do work with is my OhmTech Polar Plus. I've got an X-Tool P2, but not really a fan of the way that they put it together. It has some good features. It has some good things. The honeycomb flops around, whereas the Polar Plus does not. It's fixed. The honeycomb in the Polar Plus is always in the same spot. I don't have to guess about it. I don't have to make brackets to hold it still or anything like that. That's a big plus. The Polar Plus also, like I said, it works natively with Lightburn really well. I can also send files to it, store files on it, and literally just put material in there and use the controller to select the file and send it from there, and don't even have to turn a computer on if it's something that I cut often. And I like that. So, and I can say too, OhmTech, I did have an issue with it. A power supply went kaput on me. It was under warranty. They sent me the parts. I did have to put them on myself, which if you take your time, take lots of photos, make sure everything is marked. It wasn't terribly hard. But I went slow and deliberate with it and changed power supply out. And that thing is cutting like a beast now. Like it works really well. The autofocus and everything that's on it is good. And the only thing that I can honestly say I didn't really care about with the OhmTech Polar Plus that I have was their rotary setup. I did have to change that because the rotaries that they sent, just for what I wanted, they were subpar for me. But I've got it working now with an Atom Stack R2 rotary, and it's a beast when it comes to tumblers. So,
Yep.
I saw a question. Oh, there it is. JR is asking any tips for using weld-on or other acrylic adhesives. It's super thin viscosity and gets all over the place if you're not super deliberate with it. And I'm going to defer this question to Steve because Steve is our resident glue expert and specialist. He has over 300 types of glue, if I was guessing, in his shop probably.
You're exaggerating.
So I'll let him answer this one because he has a glue fetish. Just throwing that out there.
No, it's a fetish. It's just I like to use the right glue. I don't like to fight.
How many glues do you have?
I don't know.
100?
No.
50?
Probably not.
40?
There might be 25. I don't know.
Oh, 25? Yeah, okay. 25 is still an astronomical number of glues to have in one shop.
Well, use the right tool for the right job.
I'm because of you, I'm probably at about 10 or 12 myself. So I can't give you too much of a hard time because you have convinced me to buy several different glues that I didn't have.
Yeah, so you're right. It is very thin. I mean, it is like water, and it will get where you don't want it to be if applied too much. The included applicators, it depends on which one you get. Some of them just feel like they run out way too much. In some cases, getting like an aftermarket syringe type thing that you can control the flow a little bit better can help. But really it comes down to with weld-on and acrylics, you want a nice tight joint. You want to make sure that it's smooth and they are like basically mating as best as, as tight as they can. You don't want gaps. And then, sometimes I've even gone so far as to mask around it. If it has to be absolutely clear, I'll use a little bit of masking tape. That way, if it does run out, hopefully it just runs on the masking tape. Setting up, depending on the glue up again, creating like a fixture that you can push everything into to kind of hold it in place can help as well. But yeah, it's you just really have to get used to almost just tapping the bottle, not necessarily squeezing, and just getting little drips to come out, and then the capillary action should suck it into that joint. So, but as with anything, when in doubt, you can put some masking down, and that will help protect the surface of any squeeze out.
All right. I'm not trying to get all up in your glue stuff, but I will say that from a rookie standpoint with this weld on, these little bottles that have this little tip, I kind of use this thing like a syringe, and I like squeeze it, and then I pull the glue up into the little bottle with the metal tip, and then I use it like a little applicator to put it exactly where I want it. So if you can't find these, if you have, like, let's say maybe you diabetic or have access to a diabetic syringe or something, that actually for that weld on might not be a bad idea for an applicator, because you could really control, how much you apply using like a syringe with you don't even really need a needle on it. You just need that finer tip. But these came with the weld on that I got, and they're pretty handy.
Yeah, but the one I had has like a longer, thinner tip to it. But
I think these are longer. They just
mine's the ones I get are super thin, and they're usually about 2 inches long.
So yeah, these work. Not it's not the best probably, but they work.
Yeah, I mean the other thing is just use gravity to your advantage, and if you can rotate the joint to where it'll flow away from, into the joint and then away, that can help. But you're right. It is tricky to get used to. It is tricky to work with because too much and it smears on it. And it actually is it's chemically breaking down and fusing the plastics together. So if you get them outside there, it does run the risk of marring the surface. So.
Yes. And I have found too that there are certain plastics that if super glue gets on them, they fall apart.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I found that out the hard way it was on a dust shoe, matter of fact, and it like literally crumbled because it had one little crack. I put the super glue on that crack, and the whole thing just crumbled. And I'm like, what in the world? Yeah, I introduced the wrong chemical.
According to Janny Holster, May sells fine tip glue applicators.
Yes, she does. She's got all kinds of. Matter of fact, I've got some May glue over here. Matter of fact,
there you go. So,
because she's about as bad about glue as you are.
So, Dwayne is asking, have either of you got to play with the SculptFun UV laser? And no, they haven't reached out to me about that. It does look like, I think they posted an update that they are shipping like the first 200 or so coming soon. And that one has more of that kind of open frame style, similar to the Omni 1, but it also has the addressable Z to be able to do the internal crystal engravings and such. So it'd be interesting to see how that compares to some of the other ones out on the market. So definitely another option to look at, but unfortunately, I don't know that I'll have a chance to play with it, at least in the short term.
Yeah, see, I bet Steve probably doesn't have any of this. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, Eileen's makes a lot of different glues.
And this right here. See, it's got like a little tip.
It's a little close and not focusing on the label.
It's art glitter glue.
Mm.
It's designer dries clear. So it's supposedly been clear. Yeah, this is some May glue. Like I said, I go up there and peruse her stuff because some of her stuff does cross over. because like glues and stuff like that. I don't do a lot of paper crafting because she tells me to stay in my lane. But yeah, I do sometimes play around with paper.
So Janny Hollister says it looks like the new X-Tool P3 leaves little tabs every so often when it cuts. That is a drawback for me. I'm thinking that should be an option you can turn on and off. I believe it's in their software. It's also something you can turn on in Lightburn because there are times when you do want tabs to leave the material in the kind of the overall blank, but it shouldn't be something that's on all the time. So that might be from a user that maybe is unaware of the feature, but
yeah, it's in there. But like you said, it's an optional thing for when you're using, like when you need it.
Yeah.
I saw it the other day on XCS, but I don't think it's I don't think it's permanently on. I haven't played around in XCS a lot.
Now there are some lasers, some CO2s you can change like the frequency pulse, and then it creates more of a perforation than a cut. And so, but that would be a consistent throughout the whole thing. But if it's every so often, like usually it's a setting you can say every, 3 inches or every 25 millimeters or whatever, add a tab of so much length. And that's nice for, like cutting things out with not having them drop through. So if you're on a conveyor, or if you're on a slat, you might want that. Or in the case of making kits, like model airplane kits, we want the parts to stay in the blanks so that they survive shipping, and then it's easier for people to find them. But not always something you want when you're doing the stuff yourself and just pulling them out of the laser and using it right away. So definitely should just be a setting they need to look for.
Yeah, it's matter of fact, when you set up a cut, it's an option right here, tab generation. You can turn it on right there, and you can tell it how many tabs you want, how big to make the tabs. If you want to like partially cut a tab, but not all the way through, you can actually like decrease your power output, that kind of thing. So the same options are available in Lightburn as well. Now this is as I'm connected to the F1 Ultra. I don't have the P3, but I do know that, like I said, that's an option that you can turn off and on. Now, if you're using that conveyor that they've got where it like rolls the material into the machine and out the back, you're going to want to turn that on, because if you don't, with those conveyors like that, it's what's going to happen is your piece is going to drop down, and when it tries to push it through that conveyor, it's going to create a jam. So if you're using that conveyor, then you're probably going to have the tabs turned on to keep the pieces from falling and causing a jam. That maybe that's what she's talking about, or what the person was talking about, is that you have to leave the tabs if you're using the conveyor, because I could see where that would be a thing, because if not, it's going to jam.
Yeah, that would definitely be a case where it's required. So looks like getting caught up here. A few recommendations on the fiber laser. So yeah, good one, engraved saw blade clocks. So I do happen to have some of those. Hopefully I have some. I mean, I have these that I don't know that I want to turn into. I might have to hit up the restore, see if someone's got some older blades, but I have a collection of a few. So that would definitely be kind of an interesting thing. Chris brings up a good point, straight edge cut on a fiber gantry system. I don't know how deep this is going to cut. Obviously it'll do some, and the more time you give it, it might, but we'll see that. Engraving carbon, stainless steel. So yeah, thanks for those ideas. If you got more, keep sending them our way.
Yep. Jeffrey Lapierre saying, is this turning into more CNC than laser? I don't know what you mean by this. As far as the live goes, we've always kind of been like whatever, like making, whether it's CNC, lasers, 3D printers, general shop tools. I mean, we don't do as much talking about saws and all that, because that's pretty self-explanatory. but there are techniques and things that we do sometimes that we share. But no, it's pretty much the way I look at it. If you can make it, and if I do it here in my shop, that's kind of, because that's why my channel is not a laser channel per se. It's about my shop. and it's kind of like Steve's. It's Venturi's workshop. If it's a tool that shows up in his workshop, it's probably going to be on his YouTube channel, kind of like mine. Now I am heavy lasers and heavy CNC now, with a little side note of 3D printing. But my 3D print is more utilitarian, like stuff that I need around the shop, than it is doing it for profit. The laser stuff, I mean, it's either going to be lasers or CNCs is what I'm doing to monetize my shop. And just like today with, cutting all these things out, I did those with the X40 Max, of course, because that is the workhorse in this shop until something better comes along. I do use the OMTech a lot, but these things are pretty good size. It's on the X40. I can actually burn these panels. I can do 6 panels at a time, which is 3 units out of 1 sheet of material. And I still have a piece of scrap a little bit bigger than this thing here, but it's not worth me sitting there messing around with. But yeah, these come off of the X40, and I use the pre-finished ply so that once I get done, all I got to do is spray a little alcohol on there and wipe her down, and look at that, nice finish already. And the way the file's laid out, the outsides of it are both pre-finished, and the parts that get glued together are the unfinished parts, the way I lay the file out when I'm making it. And these are my high dollar, these are really expensive clamps here that I use for laser projects. Yeah, I think they're like $15 for like 25 or 30 of them. I get them at the dollar store, but they work really well for sheet, like thin stuff like this, because they put just enough pressure to hold it together and let the glue set, but not enough to scar it up or scratch anything. So yeah, feel free to steal this idea next time you're at the Dollar Tree.
Yeah, technically I got a CNC router before I had a laser in my shop. That was, I mean, I got my first laser 10 years ago, and I think the CNC was a couple years before that. But yeah, as you mentioned, it's heavy lasers because I do gravitate to those a lot in my projects. But as you said, I kind of open it up to anything in my workshop from time to time.
Yeah, my shop actually started revolving around sawmills. That's why there's a big sawmill blade in my logo. That was the first thing that I was actually making videos on, was a sawmill. It didn't have nothing to do with the laser. Lasers came later, but they kind of took over the space because they're just cool, and you can do them indoors. You don't got to be outside. So when it's raining and cold and all that, it's easier to do lasers.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Grow is asking, can 20 watts cut aluminum? I guess he's talking about your fiber diode thing that you got.
Yeah. Well, so it's going to depend on the thickness. I mean, if you're talking about, like the thin little business cards that I seem to not have any right here by me. Yes, with enough passes. I mean, I've done that with the Laser Pecker and the F2 Ultra, which are 20 watt fiber lasers. But you're talking a number of passes. So it's definitely something I'm going to test with it to see how well it can do that and how long does it take. But I'm pretty sure it's not going to be very fast unless it's super thin. So.
Yeah. Chris is saying at least you would have a straight edge on a fiber as opposed to gantry system. So yeah, as opposed to having that cone effect from using a galvo.
Well, yeah, but again,
if you were cutting metals, I mean,
but again, you're talking how thick can you cut? I don't know how much you noticed that on thin stuff, but yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, I'll get that hooked up soon. I'm trying to balance things out.
Chris is saying any opinion between Hayotian CO2 gantry and a Monport CO2 gantry? I've never seen a Hayotian CO2 gantry.
Yeah, I don't have any in-person experience with Hayotian, either of their style, the Galvo or the gantry ones. I know some people speak highly of them, but I'd have to see one in person to see if if they do a lot, I mean, a lot of these, going back even 10 years ago, your Omtex, your Monports, your eBay generic lasers, they were really all the same. They got slapped with some different paint, and it really came down to what sort of after sales support were you getting. Now, since then, a lot of them that have stuck around are doing a little bit more. They're adding their own requirements, or maybe they're having them upgrade certain aspects of them, and then they're providing various levels of actual support and such. So that's still a thing, but at its core, a lot of these are very similar and often manufactured in same places and just slightly different colors and labels. So
Yeah.
I'd look at the before and after sales support between those two. See.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys that talk highly, like I said, about the Hayocean machines, and I have ran some. I've had some Monport CO2 gantry machines. I know a buddy of mine that's got a bigger Monport, and he likes it. So, but I can't speak to. Oh, I can't speak to my own experiences with them. Like I said, the closest thing on a Monport, they've sent me a M40, the K40 knockoff M40. That's it. That's all I've ever had as far as a Monport gantry machine. Now I've got the fiber and it works well, but they've never sent me anything bigger CO2 wise. Well, the Mega, but we won't even talk about that. That wasn't one of their traditional machines.
Do you want to take this question?
Yeah, says, have you guys tried Visa Sculpt on your CNC routers? And if so, how do you like it? I'm not even sure what that is. I'm assuming maybe it's a software. I was kind of hoping you knew what it was.
No. Looks like it's turn any image into 3D relief. So no, that's new to me. I haven't looked at it. I have had people ask me what's the easiest way to turn a typical like JPEG, bitmap, or whatnot into like an STL and such, and that's kind of along the same lines where there are some softwares that will do it, but until you really play with them and figure out what the requirements are, it's a little hit or miss on some of them.
Yeah,
but sorry, I can't give any opinion on that one. Haven't played with it.
Nope.
Looks like they do have a free trial though, so
yeah. Art's saying if you have a CO2 in a cold shop, like below freezing with antifreeze in the cooler, do you have to warm? And then it cuts off. I'm not sure what the rest of that said. If I can find it.
So
maybe he's asking, do you have to warm it up before you run it or something?
So yeah, if you got a CO2 in a liquid cooled CO2 in a cold shop that gets below freezing, you're playing with danger. Antifreeze will help, but if that fails to keep the water from freezing, you can find yourself with a shattered tube and water in your machine really quickly. So anything you can do to kind of keep that, at least that the machine itself, a little bit warmer, or depending on your chiller setup, in some cases, if you can keep the pump running, or in some people even put a little water heater, those little fish tank water heaters in them to keep warming the water. But ideally you can control the environment a little bit better than that. The other issue you run into is as you use the machine, it's going to warm up, and the tube, if it's sitting at ambient temperature and you start running that power through it, it's going to heat up quickly, and you run the risk of kind of shocking the temperatures, which can have an adverse effect on glass. And also you can start really having issues with condensation on the machine itself. And so you want to be very careful about running them in those extreme environments. Always best if you can kind of climate control more of the area where the machine's at, but I know that's not always possible. So do your best to keep the water running. If you can run just like an oil heater around the laser to kind of keep that a little less from freezing, and or even put in some active heating into the water system itself, you're going to be doing yourself some favors.
Brad Ham said he's been running CNC all day and have broke 2 1/8-inch end mills. I feel you. I haven't broken any in the past few weeks, but
I came close to doing it today.
what happened? Did you forget?
Well, I was jogging the machine, and I had been testing the Z-axis up and down, so I had the travel set up to like 25 millimeter. And so then when I went to zero it out, I forgot to adjust that back down to like, 2 millimeter steps or less. And I clicked the button twice because I'm just click it a few times to get it moving. And it just all of a sudden just went right down the material. And luckily it came close, but it didn't. I almost pulled to Dave and had to go to Cody and say, "Oh, I need to order another one." But
hey, if you ain't careful, you will.
Yeah.
I thought with this Fox Alien, before I fixed my delay on the spin up, I thought it was going to break my bit because, you hit send and like that thing's quick. So like before the spindle could even get to spinning, it had done stuck the bit into the material and it wasn't even up to like a quarter of the speed. But luckily that 1500 kW spindle had enough torque that it was able to torque through it and kept going. But it scared me because I couldn't reach the panic button in time. And it finally got up to speed and it went ahead. And I was like, woof. And that's when I had to go in and I went into G-Sender to start with and just set me a delay there. But then when I text you, Mr. Overachiever had modified his post processor. Then I was like, well, I can't have him having a post processor that's modified and mine not. And so I went and created me a modified post processor myself. So,
yeah, I went that route just in case. I mean, you could do it on the controller, which if you're set up with a spindle, why not? But sometimes you swap around different things, and like on the Atom Stack one, they have gotten really long pause on that one. It feels like, but yeah, I'd rather wait a while than jam a bit where it shouldn't before the spindle's spinning.
Philip Hoyt says, any updates on the meet and greet? I had a question about the start time. I think you mentioned start time is 10 a.m. Is that correct? That was what I was told in the beginning. I think May's not going to make it around there till later, but that was what she told me originally. That's what I set it up as. That's what I've been telling everybody. So it's going to be 10 a.m. till 4 technically, but then we may cut out a little early if everybody calms down and dies off, because we have I think she wants people out of the building by 4. I don't know for sure. But worst case, we'll just shut it down straight up at 4 o'clock.
And remind people what date that is.
That is October the 24th. If you go to the Clack Shack website, there is a event tab on there for it. And I will try to pull that up and drop it in the chat.
See, I'm going to wait until about mid-January. I'm going to do an outdoor meet and greet.
You just trying to punish people up there.
That way I don't have to plan on it being very long.
This one's going to be indoors. So I'm still working on a lot of the finite details for us that are coming as far as where we're going to be, who's going to be where and all that. But for the most part, the date and the time and everything is set, because whether they kick us out of the building or not, the parking lot will be available that night. So there is a ball game. I think my daughter's having a ball game that night, but hopefully I can get out of there in time to do what I got to do there. If not, we can make arrangements.
See, if you ever do make it up here, I'll have to pay for it because it's not an official thing. But you're doing it at like a community college, right?
Yeah.
Well, see, I happen to work at one, and I know the facilities people, so
Yeah. Well, I did find out though that the venue that we're using this year may not be available next year. So we're kind of looking at some other events in the community that are going to be moved.
Oh, well, let me know. We can book your room up here.
So we're going to figure that out. And then also coming up in January, you and I both will be in the lovely city of Las Vegas, Nevada, if nothing changes, for CES. So I know Jerry lives in Las Vegas, but
Mm-hmm.
there may be some other people that live in Las Vegas or are going to be in Las Vegas that,
Yeah.
we need to have a wing night or something like that where we can go out
I hear
grab a
there's a
bite.
cool Minnesota themed bar there.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Well, I was kind of thinking that we could all go out to that Brazilian steakhouse and Steve.
Oh no, I am not picking up
Hear
that
the
bill.
bill.
I am not picking up that bill. I mean, it was good food, but
Well,
there's too many zeros on that bill for me.
a little high for you there. Oh, yeah. Hey, I had you when we went to Subway though, bro. I had you.
Yeah, but you maybe get water. Anyway, so yeah, so just a couple weeks coming up on that that meet and greet for you down there. So
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's going to be some if you're able to get there, and if you're not, I'm sorry guys. I can only do what I can do, but there's going to be a shop clean out in the week leading up to that meet and greet as well. I'm going to try to get some information together on what all is going to be there. I've got a short list of things that are going to be taken with me. There's going to be a couple of CNCs probably on the list. One of them's a really light duty CNC. It's very light duty CNC, but it's a CNC nonetheless, and it'll be free. And I've got another one that's actually really sturdy, but kind of a small work area. But there's going to be a couple of them up for grabs, as well as some lasers. I've got quite the collection of small portable lasers sitting over my shoulder over there. There's probably a We Create in the mix and a laser pecker, and there's another couple of machines here and there. So we'll see. But I'll be putting out some information on those for you guys. And the way it's going to work is the machine giveaways are just going to be for the guys that know about me prior to the event, because I've had it happen before at events. Nothing against anybody else's followers, but I want my folks to be the ones to win the machine.
So what you need to do, because you'll know the week before or so what you're going to bring, right?
Yeah, and I plan on having like sign-ups.
Well, what you could do is you could have like create a document or something that has tickets that people could print out or whatever, and they print it out, put their name on it, and or tell them like, hey, if you can't print it out, you'll have to tell me this thing and I'll give you one at the show. That way they you don't have to worry too much about it. They can drop it off, and they have to have watched one of your videos or seen one of your things beforehand to get it. So
yeah. Well, what I was looking at doing was doing the online sign up form, because there's some people may not want the CNC, they may not want the laser,
right,
one or the other.
you just print out sheet tickets for each thing,
Yeah, just doing the magic wheel or whatever the day of the event, and seeing who picks up what. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
In any case,
but I do have my little roller thing too that I could use.
So pay attention to Clack's channel so you know how to enter. Probably within a week. So Sharon's asking, what's the best filament to start with for testing? I'm getting a FlashForge 85M 3D printer at Thanksgiving. So I want to get some on hand. Couple things to think about there. So I recently did the video on that printer, actually the 85X. Nice multicolor open. You get it as an open frame laser, but it has a kit you can buy to make it enclosed. It has the multicolor IFS system on the side. Pretty close to a Bamboo A1, but it's not a sling bed. It's a Core XY. but it also has a smaller working area. It's like 220 millimeters cubed instead of 256. So if you're curious about that, check that video out. The software is very similar to Bamboo, but they only have print profiles for their filament in there. But I'll be honest, most PLAs and PETGs are going to be fairly close to each other. So if you use their profiles with them, they'll probably be all right. So you might want to pick up a couple rolls of the Flash Forge filament just as kind of a baseline. But the Polymaker stuff that you've seen me use is pretty good. Also, I've had good luck with I've just been testing out. It's a company called Voxel 3D, and they have, if you're here in the US, they manufacture the filament here. They're like $16-17 a roll, plus shipping. So you kind of want to buy about 4 rolls, get free shipping from them. I haven't tried it, but Ryan over at R. Ballard Designs, he did a video testing the inexpensive filament from Hobby Lobby, and he ran it through his Bamboo printers and said that worked pretty well. And so that might even be another option for just kind of playing around. That's a little bit cheaper. So, and I haven't used much of it recently, but I think it's the Overture stuff through Amazon has been decent for me in the past as well. So those are a few to try. Yeah, also take a look at some of the deals that might come up just pre-Thanksgiving or Black Friday. You might be able to find some cheap. You know, it's always good to have just a couple spools of I just need to play with this thing and figure it out kind of stuff. So,
yeah. But on the same note, too, the filament can make a difference in the quality of your prints, too. So there's that.
It can, but the other thing I would definitely do is try to get a dry box of sorts, even if it's just the passive ones with the desiccants in them. If you're having some issues, sometimes having wet filament from just absorbing it from the air is your biggest culprit there. So,
yeah. Oh yeah, I learned that one. You wet filament is not your friend. Tenro says, do either of you have a dedicated spray booth? I do. It's basically 2 stools and a piece of plywood out in front of my shop, out in the sun. I take it out there when it's not raining, out into the yard. But if it is raining, then I kind of bring it back closer to the shop under the porch. But that's my spray booth because I don't have that kind of space.
Yeah, I don't have a dedicated spray booth. Down in my basement shop, I have a small cardboard box for like spraying things like tiles, for lasers, tiles, and small. It's just big enough that it does that, and it kind of keeps the overspray down. The other thing I've done, depending on what I'm spraying, I don't know that I'd use this for like polyurethane and things like that, but for just like spray paints and things, I've done the whole thing where you basically make a bracket, or you even just tape on a couple of box filters to a box fan, and that pulls the material through the filter and cuts it down a bit. But no, I don't have room for a whole on spray booth. For people that do larger things like furniture and such, some of those like fold up tent things, they actually do work pretty well and they like them. But I'm kind of like Clack. I'll do one of two things. If it's in the summer, I'll just take it outside. I'll spray it out in the driveway in the yard and let it kind of dry and cure in the sun. If it's in winter and I'm out here, it'll be the last thing I do for a day, and then I'll just turn my internal filters on, let them run. But yeah, it's definitely something that it's good to keep in mind, because you don't want to be inhaling most particulates from really anything.
Yeah. Chris Gallagher says, what are the practical differences between the 5 and 10 watt UV machines? I only have the 2 5 watts currently, but just from what I know and from my research, the biggest thing is going to be the speed in which you can do things, and not so much the difference in materials. The thickness of materials you can cut and all that comes down to focus. I will say that, like say with this machine being a 5 watt, if you're running the the smaller lens, you get more output from that 5 watt because it's bringing it into a smaller spot size. where if you put the bigger lens on there, you can cover a bigger area, but it kind of, waters down your power output a little bit. So you could maybe counteract some of that water downness if you had a 10 watt as opposed to the 5. But more or less, it's not necessarily going to be, I wouldn't say it's going to be the ability to do different things as much as it is. You're just going to do it a little faster. And I'm not going to say twice as fast because we know it doesn't exponentially increase like that. But I would say that it would, it should speed things up.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there anything that you can think of that I missed?
No, that's about my understanding on it as well. And as you say, I've got the 5 watt UV machine, so be interesting to see because I know they have the Omni 110 watt, and I think Haoshin has a larger one. A lot of them that are coming out are in the 5 watt range, kind of as an entry level. Yeah. So I imagine we'll be seeing a little bit more.
Yes, I imagine so. Let's see what we got.
Miles is asking, when using the carbon or stainless steel etching, do y'all use a marking spray? I've got a MOPA fiber laser galvo.
If you got a MOPA, you don't.
Probably not. I mean, the only thing would be that if you really want just a nice solid flat black marking, the marking spray is probably going to make that a little bit easier. But if you've got a consistent metal, and if you've got something where you have like some sample tests and you're going to be using it over and over again, it would be worth it doing a test grid and dialing that in and then just doing it straight. But if it's like a one-off piece that you don't really have a lot to test on, but you can test what it takes to get the marking spray to fuse to metal, that might be the way to go then.
Yeah. I will say that from my experience trying to get black on stainless steel, you're going to be closer to the top of your frequency range because the lower frequencies, in my experience, the frequency is kind of like sandpaper. The bigger the number, the smoother the result. The smaller the number, just kind of like teeth on a saw, it's going to be a little more coarse. I seem to have better luck, like, digging into materials with a lower frequency and doing the color seems to work best with the higher frequencies. So,
yep.
And same thing with the pulse rate. The slower your pulse rate, it tends to build up more heat in the material. The faster pulse rate is more of a buffing effect as opposed to a digging effect. So I would say you're probably going to be in the higher part of your hue pulse and your frequency to try to get black on stainless. But I've gotten some pretty decent black on stainless using a MOPA. But I'd always test. Like Steve said, it takes testing.
I think this goes back to what type of channels we are, but Ryan's saying I thought Clock's channel was about a troublesome pup named Biscuit, and I think that's fair. But that might be more of the Clackley channel. Yeah,
that's more on the other side of things, but he comes in here sometimes. I'm surprised he hadn't been beating the door down tonight.
That's just a bad attempt at a shameless plug for your other channel.
Yeah, some nights he comes in here and like he's just being goofy, which the dog is goofy anyway. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he got dropped on his head when he was a puppy or what, but he's a little weird. But
so I mean, if you want to see more of this goofy dog that may or may not have been dropped on his head, definitely check out David's retirement channel called The Clackleys.
That's right. There should be a link to it in the description of my live show tonight.
Yeah.
So,
Mike Thompson's asking, what 3D printer do you recommend for a first-time user?
As always, my pick would be the Bamboo because that thing has made 3D printing fun for me. Now, there are cheaper alternatives that are coming out now, but I have no experience with them.
Bamboo has been kind of leading the ease side of it for a little bit, with their slicer and printer integrations. They do lock things down a bit, so you can't get yourself in as much trouble, which does frustrate some of the tinkerers and such. So, and they're not required to be cloud-based, but the easiest way to use them is you do need to set up an account with them. You need to connect your printer and your your account, your printer and your software to that, and you can use the app on the phone. So that there is that aspect of what people necessarily don't like. That being said, the Flash Forge is a very similar experience. It's actually built kind of based on the same Orca slicer and whatnot. A little bit cheaper than the Bamboo if you're wanting to get the multicolor built into the printer as well. With the Bamboo, it's an add-on, which drives the cost up a little bit. So both of those so far for me would be ones I would recommend to beginners that I've personally had experience with. I've heard good things about the Centauri Carbon. I haven't had personal experience about it. I'm tempted to just buy one, but I don't have space for another 3D printer right now.
Yeah, and that's me. I haven't. Nobody has offered to send me one, and I haven't bought another one because I am tickled to death with what I got. Like I printed I can't pull it up now if I didn't close the app. I printed me because I broke mine because I printed my prototype out of PLA, and it's lasted for a really long time. But I had to go back and print me another holder for my my sander because this weekend I was using a sander and I went to put it back on the holder, and somebody forgot to wait until it quit spinning before they put it in the holder, and I may or may not have snapped some of my PLA. So I had to print me another one out of PETG, and I changed the infills and everything to make it more rigid. And so I just got through printing it a little while ago. Matter of fact, it's still sitting on the printer in there.
Radder's got a good point. The Vikings didn't lose today, so woohoo.
Yeah.
It was their bye week, so if they lost, it would have been really sad. I wouldn't put it past them.
Radu said, I had a dream that woke me up the other night. I won the drawing for the Shipoko and had to figure out how to carry it home. If you're talking about that one back there, that one will not be in any drawings. Now, there may be a Shipoko in a drawing. You never know. But it's not going to be that one. I think we hit.
Lance is asking thoughts on Bamboo AMS Lite versus the AMS or AMS Pro. If you're getting the A1 or the A1 Mini, definitely just go with the Lite. That's really built for those, and you can get printed the brackets for it. If you have one of their more cabinet style printers, the AMS Pro came out right as I bought my AMS. The nice things there is going to be its ability to the serviceability. The way the original AMS one is, it's a little tough to get at some of the things, and it's the Pro is easier to maintain and get access to the tubes, and there is a bit of a heating option, but you can't run the heater while printing. I did just recently pick up the Sunlu. Well, I bought it a few months ago. It finally shipped, the Sunlu heater add-on for the AMS. So I hope to get that attached to the P1S soon. I just started printing a kind of a riser for the AMS so that I can get the glass off there and still have it on top of the printer. So as I get that kind of put together, then I'll try to get the that Sunlu heater out in there as well, and that might be kind of the best of both worlds. But I will still have that possible issue of the maintenance with those tubes. But so yeah, if you're going with the A1, just stick with the AMS Lite. But the other ones you might want to up for the Pro just for the ease of maintenance on it.
Tangibility Yours by Tammy says, hi guys, glad I finally caught your live. Just wanted to know what you think about the Omtech Polar Fume Extractor. And are you talking about the fans that come in the Omtech Polar, or like the separate extractor that they have? Assuming that they have a separate extractor. I don't
know, they have one specifically for the Polar. I haven't seen that. I know they have some of those fume extractors. So yeah, I guess it depends on which one. And honestly, looking at the ones they have, I don't, unless you're getting their filter box. Here's the thing. On fume extractors, if you're not paying at least $1,000 for the thing, you're probably going to be disappointed in its performance. They're the ones that have like the 3 stack filters. They're great for about the first hour or two, and then you start smelling a bit of smoke and other things, and then all of a sudden it gets clogged up and the airflow is so bad that you got to at least take that top layer out, rinse it out, clean it out, or replace it. And then over time, the others, you're going to be going through those filters pretty quick. And you're not going to be getting the 30, 40, 80 hours they say on it, a couple hours of solid use, maybe to 8 to 10 of light use. The only one that I've used that's in the affordable range that I feel does more than that is the X-Tool AP2, their desktop one. Now that can link with the X-Tool, the newer X-Tool lasers really well, or you can run it manually. That one has like some mini cyclone separators up front, and so that takes a lot of the particulate out of the air before it hits the normal filters, and so that's where it actually works better for longer. But it also has a stack of, I think, 5 different filter modules in it that, again, over time, it's going to cost you quite a bit to replace. So you're really needing to find some of these units that have very large filters that are probably going to cost you a few $100s a time to replace if you're trying to filter and keep the air inside. So it's just these things create a lot of particulate, a lot of VOCs. And to filter that out, you definitely don't want to go cheap or you're not going to be happy.
Yeah, I would agree. The AP2 is the only one that I've had any long-lasting luck with as far as like without having to change filters continually. I've had some of the Comgrow ones. I've had a couple of like the Laser Pecker one. I've had, matter of fact, I've even got a new X-Tool desktop one right there that, I haven't tried it yet. It's still in the box, but like you said, those if you're just going to a show for a day and you need something, maybe that'll maybe to get you through the show. But if you're going to run it every day in your shop or in your garage or whatever, you're going to be burning through some filtration elements and stuff. From what I've seen so far, like I said, the AP2, mine is still working relatively well as far as like I can't smell anything, but I've done mostly tumblers with it. And I have cleaned that top cyclone filter a time or two, but I haven't ran it in a while. So, but yeah, I agree. The cheaper ones tend to, it's just a metal box with a bunch of filters in it, and the top one will stop up right away, and then you're done.
Yeah, they're not so bad if you're just doing light work. Like if you're just doing some light engravings that don't create as much smoke and particulate, especially if you're not doing deep engravings, they'll last a fair time. But if you're doing deep engravings, if you're doing cutting, or if you're working with plastics and other things, that's where they're going to plug up pretty quickly on you.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the one about the bed slingers and so forth. Oh, there it is.
So yeah, she clarified that no, this is Travis was saying, I have a long duct aimed at noisy neighbors. The wood smoke makes them gripe, and the acrylic usually keeps them in the house. Well, that's something, for some people, they just need something to cut down on the smell before they pipe it outside. And then that might, cut down enough to where you're still pulling it out. It's not as dense, but yeah, it's definitely something. I definitely caution people who are trying to run this indoors without an option to vent outside. That's going to be an expensive thing to keep you happy and healthy.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, if you're just wanting a pre-filter to keep your neighbors happy, I mean, that may be something that you could use one of those little DIY kitty litter filter boxes or whatever for. Yeah. I've seen some people take 5-gallon buckets and, outfit those with some kitty litter and just, pull the air through the kitty litter and it knock enough of it off to keep the neighbors happy if that's what you're trying to do, because it'll take a lot of that particulate out, and you just basically just shake up the bucket every now and then and move the kitty litter around and keep rocking for however long. So that might be, something like that for that application might be an easy enough fix to be affordable.
Radu's asking, I don't have a 3D printer, but I've been looking around. Can you explain the difference between sling bed and whatever you just mentioned is the other type? So sling bed takes one axis and it moves the whole bed. And so your material and the bed is actually slinging around, usually front and back. And then it'll have, your side to side. Sometimes they can be reversed. It's rare, but your other axis will be side to side, and then you have your Z axis that moves up and down. So it's kind of half gantry, half bed movement, instead of having your whole movement. Now the Core XY is a high speed method of using two belts to move the head around very quickly and very precisely. Or you can have the typical style like we do with our lasers as well, which was, just individual belt driven on each axis. So it's whether you have the material fixed in place. And also on a lot of them too, you might have the bed raises up versus the head raises up. So on the Core XY, the head stays the same at the top of the machine, and it gets slung around by two belts. And then the Z axis is the whole bed moving, where on the more typical ones, the actual head moves up away from the bed.
Yeah, they if you're putting one in a cabinet, the Core XY is going to be better, of course, for enclosed machines because it's not wiggling around everywhere. Lance, I haven't heard anything about it. I've been busy, so I don't know if they're announcing something or whatever. But I mean, Bamboo's they've been a good machine for me, honestly.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what upgrades. I mean, I would imagine I would hope they're looking at a better touchscreen than what an actual touchscreen, I should say, rather than the small LED display with the little 4-position dial. And it would be nice to see if they also incorporate at least the quick swapping heads on the like they have on the A1 and newer ones. But I'll be curious to see what they have and also what the price is at. I do my P1S is only, I don't know what, a few months old, so it would have to be some significant upgrades, but you never know. So we'll see what comes out with that.
I'm trying to scroll through.
Jerry Richmond, do you guys have any thoughts on glues that are safe to cut with a laser after they have dried? That's a good question. There are definitely some things to avoid, and other things that will be near impossible to cut. Epoxy resins are not easy to cut. And depending on what is in them, some of them can have some polymers that aren't the best when they're atomized and vaporized. Thin, PVA glue is usually okay, but there again, in thicker globs, they can cause more of an issue of cutting than not. Definitely want to stay away from anything that has formaldehyde in it, because that's not good to vaporize. So I generally try to avoid cutting glued items, though. It adds a thick layer. It can add a thick layer that's tough to get through. But generally, your wood glues in a thin layer are going to be your best bet.
Yeah, and you got to be careful too, because some of that stuff it could actually bring a little more flammability to whatever it is you're working with too, depending on the type of glue and all that. You never know. Robert Meredith is saying, I got a 40-watt Fox Alien. My friend wants me to laser engrave stainless steel wristband. Do I coat it or do it as it is? If I'm assuming for Fox Alien 40-watt, I don't know if that's a 40-watt output or the old, classification of 40-watt consumption. But blue lasers can mark stainless without marking spray or anything. But me personally, I like the results best when using marking spray. But you would probably want to do some testing and just see which results you like better, from my opinion, because you're kind of you start trying to do stainless steel. Like I said, especially on a wristband, the benefits are coated, say Cerakote or Cermark or whatever, is going to be a lot more visible. But if it's something that you're going to wear daily, it's also probably not going to hold up as well as if you could actually mark the material itself. It's going to be an input, isn't it? So I don't think I've seen a Fox Alien 40 watt. They've got one they're advertising to be a 40 watt fixed, but it looks more like a 5 watt, 10 watt output.
Yeah, if it's 10 watt,
assuming it's this one, Fox Alien. It says Fox Alien 40 watt, but it's output 10.
Yeah. If you get the right marking spray, it'll work. Some of the marking sprays don't like to work at lower wattage, so you gotta be careful with that.
Yeah.
Mark's got a good comment. Be careful drawing filament while printing. Bamboo doesn't allow it for a very good reason. Hot, soft filament will cause problems with the drive gears and the AMS. Yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind. And having, I guess that's where a mixture of the deskins and whatnot, as long as you can dry it and then keep it dry. Sometimes those AMS boxes, they're not as sealed up as you'd like. So even just sitting in them, they'll absorb some humidity if you're in a real humid area. So mine are down in my basement, which is pretty constant temperature and humidity. So usually that's pretty decent for me, unless we have like last year where we have record rains and water just comes in everywhere. But
I've developed a hoarding problem with those little desiccant packs, because I've started, when I dry my filament, I'll put it in a gallon Ziploc bag and I'll drop a couple of them in there with it. So now every time I open filament or open a machine and those little packs are in there, I'm keeping them so that I can throw them in with my filament as it's being stored. And I find that I'm collecting way more of them than I need. My little dryer is right here, and like it has gotten out of hand, really, guys. See, this is just the ones that I have in the dryer currently. But they're really cool because, you just put them in the dryer with the filament, dry them out, and then drop them in the Ziploc bag when you go to put the filament up. But I keep, I think there's like 15 or 20 of these things that are in there now. And when I dry roll a filament, I just throw one of these in the bag with it.
Lance is asking, would the answer change? Speaking of which AMS to get with the new firmware that comes out that allows the Pro to be used on the A1. So it's a pretty steep jump in that. So I guess the difference being in the fact that you can, they'll be enclosed and it's a better chance to not absorb that moisture, and or the extra, if you really want to have that many colors hooked up to your printer. There are some things that I've come across if you wanted to do the multicolor print where 4 can be limiting, but I'll be honest, I think it's pretty rare that I've felt that I needed to have more than 4 colors in one print job. Not saying it's impossible or never, but on these single head units, when you're doing the color swaps, you waste so much filament every time it has to swap color that unless you're doing a production plate of, quite a few items, a one-off, it kind of it makes you a little sick when you see the amount of wasted filament that gets dropped out of those things. So
yeah.
So I don't know that me personally, I wouldn't be looking at hooking up multi-units. I use it more for common colors I use, or if I have, the thing I really like about the AMS units, especially on the Bamboo ones, is if you're running low on one color, you can drop another spool, the same one in, and just tell it, use that one up and then switch over, so that you don't have, you're not sitting there going, I don't know, is there enough filament on that one to finish this job? That's where I get a lot of the feature out of there outside of multicolor. Now, if I was able to get one of those multi-head units that's coming out, those would be interesting to play with and actually be able to do multi-print without that waste.
Yeah, and that's what I am with the AMS. If I do multicolored anything, it's going to be like when I'm doing my tags for my lens covers for the Galvos. This is about the only multicolored print that I do. But the reason I do is because basically I print all of the orange, and then once it gets above the base, I print the letters in black. So there's really only one filament change in this file. If there was any orange above here, I probably would have modified the file. But what that does is it prints the base like tab with the orange, and then I set it to start at that next layer above the base and print everything else in black. And so that allows me to be able to print that without, like you're talking about, having 2 pounds of scraps to print this one little keychain thing. But yeah. Merrill Carl is asking, have you tried engraving bricks with a blue laser? I played around with it a long time ago, and you can mark them. It's just really slow, and it's not the same effect as what you can get with the MOPA. Like the whole making it turn into glass thing, that actually caught me off guard. I was thinking it was going to just like recess it, but you couldn't. I don't think you could get the same results with a blue laser, because you can't generate the IR of that MOPA is generating so much heat that it's just going to do way different than a blue laser would. Even if you painted the brick black, I still don't think you could pull enough heat to do what the fiber's doing. Oh, that hurt. Somebody was saying earlier that where was it at? The lawnmower. They were saying they got him a lawnmower waiting on the rain to go away. I missed it. But I have officially, I'm almost at 500,000 cubic feet on mine. My little lawnmower robot has been putting in some miles. I was going to pull it up and see. I'll show you here. Yeah, I'm at 718. What is that? 718,455 square feet so far. 79 times 237 hours of runtime. And loving that thing. I had to tell it, I did have to change the time for it to go home, because it was out there earlier after dark cutting grass. And it uses visual guidance systems. So I was like, well, that's not good, because it literally can't see in the dark. So I had to sit at home and change the time.
Wendy's asking, is the FlashForge Adventure 5M Pro good for beginners? I just purchased one for my grandchildren for Christmas. I've heard decent. I mean, I've got experience with the newer, the 85X, and I've heard decent things about the 5M Pro, especially the later revisions. And that's one thing that FlashForge is maybe both good but also bad at, is they've released some of their printers and they get some feedback of, hey, this isn't great, that isn't great, this should be changed. And then they do fix it. And in some cases, they also then send those upgraded parts out to the known orders in the past. So they've kind of supported their early adopters in that. So buying it after kind of the first run, and that was kind of the same thing with the 85X. I've got a kind of like a version 2 where they've already done the upgrades that people found they needed, versus the ones that, came out like the beginning of this year. And so if you're looking at reviews of anything out there, especially something that's been out a while, it's good to try to see if there's, follow-up stuff from it that's more recent, just to see if, it's good to look at the older ones, but also maybe compare it with some newer ones, because sometimes those things get addressed. So yeah, I don't have personal experience with that specific printer, but my experience with the 85X from FlashForge, I'm very comfortable recommending it to some people with just some, caveat understandings of differences that are probably more geared at the less casual user that they might be frustrated with, but they do a pretty good job making it fairly easy to get going with their printer. So I think they'll enjoy that one. And there was a question from Sharon asking about filament dryers, especially ones on budget. So the two that I have played with, there is the cheaper one is a Sunlu filament dryer, and this is a single spool dryer, and it you just plug it in and you basically set the temperature and the time, and it works pretty well. That one is about $40 right now. I'll drop a link for that one out there so you can take a look at that. The one that I'm enjoying more now is actually the Creality, and this is a double spool one. It's about twice as much, but it does give you a little, I think the controls on this one are a little bit easier. It's a little more intuitive. They've got some settings for various materials rather than just kind of manually setting everything. So if you have a little bit more budget, that is probably the one I would look at, is the Creality one. So those are the two that I have some experience with that you might want to look at. So let's see what else we got. Oh, we got Clack back as well. Yeah, Mark says he's surprised there's still companies out there advertising power supply wattage instead of laser output wattage. Yeah, there's a lot of people really push back on that, on deceptive advertising and such. And so I think a lot of places have really scaled that back, but every so often you still see it, and it is very frustrating. So it's always best to look at that optical output.
Yeah, this is somebody's asking what dryer I use. That's the one that I purchased back in January the 28th, according to Amazon. And it's a Creality. I think don't you have one similar or something?
Yep.
But it works pretty well. I like it. I've had good luck with it. Matter of fact, I walked in the house to get this. This is straight off of the printer. This is my little holder. I printed this out of PETG for my sander. And then, of course, I got to break my little supports out here. But what this is, and I broke the one that I've been using, so I had to print me another one.
It's funny because there's an upgrade for most office chairs that have more like rollerblade wheels on them.
Yeah.
And I do that here, and I've been threatening to do it at work, although I'm trying to get a new chair at work that's, like the tall chair, not the normal chair. But they're a lot nicer, they're quieter, they're smoother.
Yeah, well, it's a little rough here in the shop, so they get eat up pretty good. All right, so I got all the support broke out of there. But yeah, you can see this is it bolts to the side of the wall over there, and then the sander goes down in there. This is PETG, and I've got it set to strength density levels. So I think this is like a 25% infill with maybe 4 or 5 walls rather than just like 2 or 3 that they typically do.
2 is usually default.
Yeah, so I've got this. This is set up a little more robust, but the prototype, that I did, I printed out a PLA, and I set my sander down in there, and on my prototype, these little tabs right here are longer, and they actually stick out enough to where the motor on the sander is spinning. It can hit them. And today I wasn't paying attention. I holstered the sander too early, and when I did, that tab went inside there when that motor was still spinning, and it just snapped it right off. I had to print me another one.
Yeah, be careful. Merrill Carl Albury has one of the Prusa XL5 heads in almost zero waste. That would be very cool. Yeah, I'd love to play around with a multi-head 3D printer for some of that stuff. Trying to scroll through for some You know, there's actual questions. A lot of comments about stuff. Travis says he keeps a dehumidifier in the room with 3D printers. It's on a timer and runs an hour a day. Yeah. It stays dry as a popcorn fart in there. Well, I don't know if I'd want to hang out in there too long, but probably really good for your filament. I am getting to the point with my filament down in my office that I'm like, I'm having to consider a different storage option to be able to see the different ones, because I've been getting more and more requests for a lot of random tchotchke stuff, and of course they usually want a specific color. So
yeah, this is one I broke. It wasn't terribly broke, but it did like snap it right there. So yeah, little weak spot right there. If this one breaks in that same spot, I'm gonna go back into the file and I'm gonna bring this shoulder on out a little bit and make it thicker. But hopefully it won't.
So Mike Thompson's asking, how do you all decide what material to use for 3D printing? So the use of the item is going to dictate it to some degree. For a lot of just simple if it's like an indoor use, structural concerns aren't there. PLA or PETG are kind of the easier, cheaper filaments to use. They don't require a lot of venting. They don't necessarily, as a matter of fact, they don't like to be too hot. Some filaments like ABS, they're going to be stronger. That's more like the Lego type plastic, but they require more heating, and you should definitely be considering more venting. I mean, even with PLA and PETG, there are some concerns about some VOCs and such that you might want to consider some filtration and venting on, but definitely with some of the other filaments, you're going to want to look into venting it. If you need a flexible one, TPU, as a matter of fact, I think I have it out here. You can print out actual flexible items. So this is one I tested out on the AD5X. I did print it straight from a dryer box because this is very moisture sensitive. It does not like to. You just have it on a reel and out while it's printing, it can absorb too much moisture. But this is very flexible filament. And so you can make gaskets for certain things. You can make little wheels for things, anything that needs a little bit of a flex to it. That would be what you'd be looking for. And there are a number of others as well, but it really kind of comes down to the use, durability, whether it's going to be indoor or outdoor kind of stuff. And I haven't even played around with a lot of the higher end options myself, but for most people, they kind of stick with PLA and PETG just for the ease of printing and such.
Yeah, I dropped a screw over there a while ago, and it's really messing with my OCD. I don't know where it went. I'm afraid I'm going to step on it. This is one of those little short 3/4 inch ones, and those little things love to stand right straight up and down. Because it's a lathe head 3/4 inch screw. And I'm going to end up stepping on it, or me or Biscuit one will, if I don't find it tonight.
Dave Groves asking, what do you use for 3D design? I've played with Fusion and Tinkercad. It's not the best one for it, but I started using SketchUp back when it was owned and developed by Google, and that was kind of an early 3D modeling program. I still use it quite a bit just because of, old habits die hard. But that's not necessarily approachable for everybody. So I've done some things in Tinkercad to kind of show some design in there. It can be a bit limiting, but they have a lot of add-ons and such that you can download that make it a little more flexible. But Fusion for sure is kind of a all around. If you're wanting to do 3D design, if you're wanting to do some cam type stuff with CNC routers, you want to do really advanced architectural design, mechanical design, it's a very powerful tool for a lot of that. But there are other ones out there, but the ones I try to find things that are a little bit simpler and approachable.
Yeah, I typically wind up using Fusion, and I like it. I'm not like a master at it or anything. I'm getting better. I've gotten to where I can make a lot more complex designs than originally. Because originally I was just making you see all my little hose adapters and stuff like that. Originally, that was what I was doing with my 3D printer, was simple, circular shapes like hose adapters. And maybe I would, try to make a holder for like SD cards or something like that. But eventually I got a little more advanced. And so like that sanding piece that I showed you a minute ago, like this is my design file for it. And so now I can do a lot more complex shapes and stuff and adjust them as needed. And so this is I designed it from scratch. Basically, I started out with just circles and built up from there and had to measure everything. I do rough sketches on like little tablet pads and stuff, and then I just bring it over into software. I'll do a real thin, like low density model. So like you can use PLA, and like there's different settings. So we're basically 3-dimensionally, it is what you want it to be, but structurally speaking, it's going to be like sponge. Like it's not going to hold any weight. And so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll design it and then I'll print like a really thin infill, just a mock-up of it to make sure it fits where it's supposed to, and then I'll make adjustments from there. I tend to make a few adjustments. Matter of fact, if you look up here at the top of this is version 7. So it took me 7 tries to get this thing dialed into the way that I wanted it. And that's one of the things with 3D printing that I need to get better at, is getting it right the first time, because there's always that little something that you overlooked that doesn't quite fit like you want it to, or, maybe it's like in the case of this, I made it too tight to where, you had to like concentrate on being able to lift the sander up out of it. And so I had to go back and loosen the fit a little bit, because if not, you were fighting with it, trying to get the sander off of it. And it become more of a nuisance than it was a help by holding the sander. Because what I wanted was, because I didn't want my sander just bouncing around and falling. I wanted a place I could hook it, in between sanding jobs or whatever. And so, yeah, it is very utilitarian around here, what I use my 3D printers for. But man, there's nothing like it. Like you can solve problems without having to spend a bunch of money. It's nice. It's fun. I like creating.
It's a pressing question.
So far, they've only had the conference call me a couple of times. I did a pretty good job of, when I left, I made a spreadsheet document called Clack's Map of Things that included hyperlinks, passwords, step-by-step procedures, a few short links to videos, stuff like that, so that they could, go into my spreadsheet and go, make an ID card, and it would say, okay, go to this application, and you could just click the hyperlink, and then it would tell you the passwords and all that. So I did a pretty good job of laying most of that stuff out. And I had been training people, because it wasn't like I just up and left. Like they knew it was coming for a couple of years. So I had been training people for a while on doing a lot of the things that I was doing. And to the point to where a lot of it was even, I was go ahead and transferring those responsibilities. So by the time it got time for me to retire, there wasn't a whole lot that I was responsible for that I hadn't already trained somebody how to do. So it's been better than I thought. They still, like, they're acquiring some laptops, and there's some changes being made to the network and stuff like that. They still call me and ask me, hey, the company's telling us we need to do this, or we need this instead of that, or, is this true? Because our IT company will, if you need like a 10 terabyte, they'll try to sell you like a 200 terabyte, because they make more commission off of it. And so I've just been doing some fact checking on some purchases and stuff. But other than that, it's been pretty nice. It's been really nice.
Jared's asking, will TPU print on the A1? It will, but they recommend not running it through the AMS. So you gotta, I think with people that do it a lot, they'll put a little Y adapter at the extruder, where the AMS can go in, but then you can bypass it with just the direct one. They don't recommend it. Now, I've heard some people talking about certain types of TPU actually being able to run through the AMS. And that's just one thing that they don't recommend. It is very flexible and it probably has a hard time feeding through that. Now, that's one nice feature of the FlashForge 85X, and I showed in my video, is you can print through their IFS system, and you don't have to swap that out. So now I did have it in the Polymaker dryer box. I just have the dryer box. I don't have the heating module. I really should look at those, but I bought that specifically for TPU because it has just the little rubber kind of ports that you can feed it out of, and you can keep a deskant box or deskant bag in the box to kind of help keep it dry while you're printing.
Merrill's asking, do either one of us looked into portable 3D scanners? And I've looked into them. Yes. Do I have one? No. I've played around with one for a little while. I want to get one, but I don't know exactly which one I want yet. There's 2 or 3 that I've been really diving into here lately. I'm going to end up getting one before it's all said and done. There's 3, I think it's a total of 3 companies make the 3 that I've been looking at. And, you've got the ones that work with like mobile phones, and then you've got the ones that have to be required to the computer. And then you have the standalones that actually have like an interface and like a little storage capability and everything built into them. I like having one machine that can do it on its own and save the data to the machine. Those tend to be a little pricier. If my crystals from ComMarker ever get here, I plan on doing some 3D stuff and putting it inside those crystals. But I don't know if the boat that my crystals was on like broke down or what, but I haven't gotten them yet. So I'm still waiting on that order to show up. And once they do, I plan on doing some more stuff with crystal. And if I can get me a 3D scanner, I want to do like some facial scans and be able to do like a, like from shoulders up type of engrave into crystal, but I haven't been able to do that yet.
So speaking of crystals, I did find some. So those crystals from ComMarker are like this K9 crystal glass stuff. Yeah, and I did find on Amazon some K9 globes.
Ooh.
So I'm really curious, with this kind of being that whole lens effect, kind of refracting, how it's going to come out.
Yeah, is it going to refract it and make it like a mirrored image, or is it?
Yeah.
I mean, if you, depending on the focal point, though, it may not be as well. It may change the focal point, though.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be an experiment, to say the least, because that rounded shape with that, it may actually pull the focal point higher up into the crystal.
Who knows?
It's kind of like having a convex lens. Yeah.
So if it does work, I'm hoping to like be able to engrave like a moon or something in there.
Maybe from the bottom. Is that the bottom? Is the bottom flat?
This is it's a little stand thing that they.
You may have to put that on there and use it as like an adapter, like a lens adapter.
So that'll be interesting. An experiment I need to do here in the next little while. But yeah, hopefully you get your crystals. I'm gonna have to send you some of mine otherwise.
Well, I'm not the only one. I talked to Milton, and he apparently he hasn't got his either. So
apparently y'all just ordered a little too early, because I know I ordered mine after you.
Yeah, because I think I even told you, hey, they've got them on their website, and you got yours, and I haven't gotten mine. Like I said, I'm not sure what's going on. I'm gonna have to reach out to ComMarker though, because it's been a month.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been a while.
It's been a month since I ordered those. And so either the boat that mine were on, maybe the container that they were in is like floating out there in the ocean somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, I haven't gotten them yet. I even got a thing the other day saying review your purchase. And I reviewed
I didn't get it.
I'm like, my review is that I haven't got my order. So I don't know.
Question on that was, hey Dave, what are your thoughts on acrylic blocks for 3D engraving? And it won't work, as Radu said. I did order some they were called crystal blocks from Amazon, but yeah, they turned out to be just a very pure acrylic. and it passes right through it. It doesn't do anything to it. So you do need to have the actual crystal glass to make
You
that
can
work.
mark the back side of it just like you could with regular clear acrylic with like the Omni 1, but you can't do the subsurface stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know what science thing is happening, but something's happening. I think what's going on is there has to be at that focal point, there has to be like a heat buildup that causes a reaction in the material. And I think that's missing with other materials. I think it's this special glass or whatever, somehow or another that's happening, because my understanding is that what happens is like right at that focus of that laser, there's like tiny fracturing that takes place and causes like micro bubbles basically. And for some reason, other materials just don't do that. And so it's weird. It's some weird sciencey stuff, but yeah, I've tried some of the thick acrylic, going to see if I could do in the middle of it. And like you said, I marked the spoil board, but it won't do anything to the inside of the material. So,
Yep.
up, Cody. What's going on, sir? I saw somebody else in here a while ago. Who was that? Oh, that was Rick. I saw Rick in here a minute ago, I think, somewhere. I've got so lost in the comments.
Cody, you missed it. There's a bunch of talk about people breaking bits. I almost did today. Almost had to call you crying for another mini Jenny, but I didn't.
You got lucky. Well, I haven't broken one lately. I do need to go order some though, because I did break one a while back. But it was because I didn't run my machine for a while, and the one complaint that I have with Shapeoko with my machine is I have two switches to power up my machine. I have to power up the machine and I have to power up the VFD controller. I wish there was a way that we could just go to one switch, which I guess if I left the switches on both of them on and then did a different switch that turned both of them on, maybe that would work. But the way I've got mine set up, I have to turn on the controller and I have to turn on the VFD. And the other day, I forgot to turn on the VFD. And it did not bode well for the 18th Jenny bit.
Yeah.
Because it collided with a piece of wood at about 120 inches per minute, and it was not spinning. Carbide does not bend, by the way.
Well, I kind of wish you'd pick it up a little bit, because I feel bad. I try to help Cody make sure he, buys groceries for his family every month, and it was really easy when you were breaking bits all the time, and now I feel like you're not, and we got to do something about that.
Yeah.
Kids got to eat.
Well, I'm sure it'll happen again. I'm sure.
Yep. Well, and it's a good thing to once you dial in some bits and you start setting things up, have spares on hand, because you 13, 14 years later, I'm still doing stupid things every so often and breaking a bit. So,
yeah.
But yeah, well, we're coming up on about 7 minutes left. So if we missed your question, drop her back in again. If you have another question, throw it in quick, because Clack's that old retired guy that's got an early bedtime, and I got to work in the morning. So.
Well, it is kind of weird, because I keep telling myself, man, I got to hurry up and get off here where I can go in there and go to bed because I got to go to work in the morning. No, I don't. Like, this is my work. Like, it's kind of weird too. I'm not gonna lie, guys. It's been kind of weird, because it's been what, like 2 weeks now since I've had
never had a vacation this long, and
I've never had 2 weeks off. Like, because like I haven't gotten called in. I haven't had to I did have to answer a few phone calls and answer a few questions, but nothing too major. But I think this is the first time, other than when I had my surgeries, that I've been like out of pocket for 2 weeks. Because there was that one time where my disc ruptured, and I felt like I was like on death's doorstep for like 5 weeks waiting on back surgery. That I fell off the planet for like 5 weeks, but I was so much in pain and so like medicated during that time that I don't really remember a whole lot of it because I was just trying to focus on not having my soul ripped from my body, because that was some pain, guys. Whew. So yeah, this has been an experience to be healthy and not have to go to work. It's just, mind blown. Y'all just gotta help me make it though. Like y'all watch the videos, do some binge watching, whatever. Just help me make it, because I don't want to have to like do stuff that I don't normally do to try to make money. That's one thing that I've been looking at and trying to figure out is, what am I going to do if I get to where, the money ain't making sense. And I don't want to, I don't want to get a job. I want to stay out here in the shop. So y'all watch lots of videos
and figure out that elusive hype button.
Yeah, and hype my videos, and when you go shopping, use some Amazon links, all that good stuff, because y'all don't know how much those little gestures add up over the period of a month or two. So yeah,
we definitely like to try to find free or ways that you can support us without spending extra whenever possible. So
look at Cody. You're gonna get that right back. He's like
an investment for him.
He's like, here you go. That'll take the burn off of that, because I do need to. I meant to do it last week. I need to go inventory my bits and see, because I try to keep at least one extra of every bit.
Yeah,
just in case, because like you said, it never fails. You're trying to do a job, and something happens, you break a bit, and now it's like, oh my gosh, I can't finish this job until I get those bits. So I try to keep at least a spare on hand of each of my, especially my favorite ones.
I don't know that that's going to help either of us.
No, I'm gonna be honest with you. I get tired too, and like I said, I'll be out here all day tomorrow. I'll be working on those, finishing those. I've got to do 30. I think that's 15. That should be 15 of them that are on the table. I think only 12 are actually glued up. The other 3 are sitting there waiting to get glued up. And I've got the pile of bricks that I got to do. They've been in here since Thursday or Friday. He brought them by, and I've had them sitting over there in front of the air conditioner, just letting the dehumidification process take place. Because right now I'm at 39.4% relative humidity, because he did tell me when he dropped those bricks off that they had been stored outside. So I've been letting them sit over there and kind of air for a few days before we start lasering on them. So I've got to get the bricks done. I've got to get Maymay's stuff finished, and of course come up with some stuff for content for you guys, because now that that's what's paying the bills.
Mike Thompson's asking, is the Bamboo Lab P1S combo with the AMS a good choice? I will say yes. I do like it as a printer. That being said, I'm not using all the features of it over the A1 as necessarily I need. But I would wait. They are announcing this next week, I believe, what the P2S will be. And that is going to do one or two things. It'll change your mind to want that printer, and or maybe drive down the cost of the original, or I don't know. But they have a new model coming out, so I would just hang on a bit and see what that does to options and price. So
yeah, Ken, 40% humidity is not high here in Alabama. Like the exterior humidity right now, hang on.
Right now, the humidity is 65%.
Yeah, outside it's at 65% right now.
Alexa, play Baby Shark.
Wrong name. I changed his name. You'll never guess what it is.
Well, I'm sure there are a few people out there that are having fun right now.
But yeah, no, 40% here is actually really good. In the summertime, before, like right now, we're kind of in the middle of a drought spell for a while here. But during the summertime, it's typically 80 and above percent humidity here. At night, typically when the fog rolls in and everything, it'll hit 100% humidity. Because I mean, literally, you can walk outside and like your skin will get wet from like, it's like having your head in a cloud. Like it's crazy. But yeah, right now it's like 80 something degrees.
Right now, it's 63 degrees Fahrenheit. Tonight, expect a low of 49 degrees.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's similar out here. Of course, now as evidenced in the video I was showing earlier, the corn is dry and it's
So you don't got corn sweat no more?
we don't have corn sweat, but we still have all the lakes and everything. And of course, it's been raining a bit today, so yeah, our humidity gets into the 70s, 80s, and then overnight, as it gets cool and condensation, you'll get into those 90s, and it's also fun.
Yeah. But it is. Hey, Friday night I was at the game and I had my Crocs on and my shorts and everything, my T-shirt, and I actually started to get cool. I was like, you know what? I might should have wore some socks and some real shoes tonight, and maybe even some long pants. But we'll see. All right. Well, I guess we can get off of here now. Yeah, Cody's just going it out. He's trying to finance my bit buying.
If I take coffee this night, we're going late with the live. I don't know if you guys want to hold on to that.
Steve will be over. Like,
we'll see. The Christmas giveaway live might have to. We're going to start early and hopefully not run too late.
Yeah, we've already talked about with the Christmas special this year. We may have to start it early or run it late, one of the two, which is okay either way with me. It doesn't matter. But some of the working folks might care.
Yeah, well, that's what we're just looking at the number of things, and we don't want it to be too rushed and chaotic. So we're gonna have time it out. Of course, we'll have more details of that as we get into November and such. But definitely looking forward to that. But yes, we will give you a heads up well in advance as far as what to expect for that, because we do want to try to get everybody involved as best as possible.
Yeah, this year's giveaways and stuff is gonna be pretty cool though. I mean, I'm stoked. I'm excited about it. I'm ready to see what's going to happen. And like I said, if you haven't already, go check out the event page if you're anywhere nearby. Like I said, October the 24th here in Chilton County, we're having our meet and greet. A little shop clean out going on there. And then in January the 5th, I think it is when we're actually going to be on the ground over there.
Well, you're going to be there on like the 3rd.
Well, I'll be leaving here on the 4th, I think, and be there on the 3rd, or maybe, I don't know. But anyway,
media days are the 4th and the 5th, so you better be there.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll be there on the 3rd then, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna be in sunny Las Vegas over there near Cody's. Maybe Cody. I don't know. That's a pretty good little ride though. But you never know. Maybe Cody decides to go to CES this year.
Am I gonna have to change my room?
Change your room?
Well, I got a king size bed.
Hey, you can let you and Cody can fit in a king size.
Well, that's a good thing. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I guess.
That's right. I know you got me wondering what my departure date is. I know I put it up. Well, I put it on my calendar. Hang on, let me go look at my calendar. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. Hopefully things will. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm flying out on the 3rd. Yeah, I'll make sure.
You're there a day early. I get there the next day, and then we're there through that Thursday, I believe, right?
Yeah, I'm leaving out early Friday morning.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, Friday.
Yeah, you're leaving super early. I'm sleeping there.
It says it's wheels up at 9:10. So yeah, it's.
Oh, I thought you sent me something that said it was like 7 something.
No, I'm leaving Birmingham at 6:25 a.m. That's the early one. like we're gonna be. I'm gonna still be waking up, getting on an airplane. That's gonna suck. But
wow. I'm just hoping they preheat the airplane this time. Last year we had to sit and wait for 2 hours while they warmed up the fuel.
Well, I did change my flight because originally they stuck me with a flight over that we had to jump off in Denver and then jump back on the plane. And I remembered what happened with you and the icing. And I'm like, I had a choice between Denver and Dallas. And I'm like, there's a lot less chance of snow and ice in Dallas than there is in Denver.
Well, the problem is that this was the first flight of the day on that airplane, and it had sat overnight. And sitting overnight outside in Minnesota in January, not recommended. And so, anybody that knows what happens to diesel fuel when it gets cold, jet fuel is basically the same. And yeah, so I had a almost a 2-hour delay getting out there last year. Hopefully not this year. I'm going Delta this time, and it's not the first flight of the day. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, we've rolled over, and I think we've answered all the questions.
Hopefully.
If not, we'll be back next week. Otherwise, hit us up in the laser engraving community group. There's a link down below. Hit us up on our channels. Hit us up on our Facebook pages. I'm going to be trying to mix up some more content this week. I got a couple more machine type things to work on, but throwing in, I got some projects brewing and whatnot. So appreciate everybody checking those out and leaving those comments, hitting those likes and everything. All that does help. And otherwise, we'll be back here next week, 7 p.m.
Yeah, I just realized tomorrow's actually a holiday for a lot of people.
It is.
Yeah.
I got to go to work.
You got to work tomorrow?
We trade it for some other time.
That's terrible. Well, here at the Clack Shack, we observe that holiday, but we're just going to be out here goofing off doing stuff anyway. So,
yeah.
That's what HR passed it down to me from here to Shack. So, all right, guys. Well, stay safe, and we'll see you guys next week. Same place, same channels.
See you, everyone.